On the evening of December 30 in 2019, Dr. Marjorie Pollack, a medical epidemiologist, suddenly received an intriguing email about a cluster of pneumonias.
The alert gave me some tweets about stuff that was going on in Wuhan. A cluster of 4 cases, then 27 cases, along with a picture theoretically of a document sent out by the Wuhan Public Health Commission stating something about pneumonia cases.
That day, Dr. Marjorie Pollack discovered the start of a true global pandemic. With over 643 million confirmed cases, COVID-19 changed the world forever. But do animals also struggle with viral outbreaks? Let's go back to February 2021. Our story takes place at an international horse jumping competition located in Valencia, Spain. The outbreak of EHV-1 virus affected at least 250 to 300 horses there, and for 17 of them, the disease was severe enough to recommend euthanasia. But what exactly is this disease and how much of a threat does it pose to horses? EHV-1 is a common pathogen of the upper portion of the respiratory tract in horses. It belongs to the family of herpesviridae and consists of a genomic core made up of a linear double-stranded DNA packed within an icosahedral capsid. Starting anywhere from 2 to 10 days after contraction, EHV-1, almost like influenza, causes initial symptoms like high fever, lethargy, which is a pathological state of sleepiness or deep unresponsiveness, clear nasal discharge that turns purulent, lymph node enlargement, occasional lymphedema, and a predisposition for secondary bacterial bronchitis. In most instances, symptoms of EHV-1 are hard to distinguish from EHV-4 or influenza. Usually it doesn't pose much threat, as 80 to 90% of horses are infected before they turn 2. So why are we talking about EHV-1 today? Unlike other respiratory tract viruses, it can also affect 2 other major body systems, the central nervous system and the reproductive tract. EHV-1 can cause abortion in pregnant mares. Even worse is the neurologic form of EHV-1 infection, equine herpes myeloencephalopathy or EHM. Although it doesn't happen frequently, progression of EHV-1 to EHM can be life-threatening to horses with symptoms like lack of coordination, urine dribbling and inability to void the bladder properly, loss of sensation around the tail, head and thighs, and weakness in the hindlimbs so severe to cause difficulty in rising or standing up at all. Transmission of EHV-1 can happen via a few routes. Through direct contact with an acutely infected horse or a reactivated virus-shedding horse. Just like the herpes virus in humans, during stress, EHV-1 can be reactivated and can leave the body via nose and mouth secretions. It can also be transmitted from contact with an aborted fetus or placenta, which is rich in infectious virus particles. Finally, EHV-1 can be acquired indirectly through unclean items like food troughs, water buckets and nebulizers, as the pathogen can live without a host for up to 4 weeks, but normally only around 7 days. The good news is that there is a vaccine for EHV-1, but there is not a vaccine for EHM. Why EHV-1 causes severe neurological symptoms in some horses is not understood fully yet, though mature or aged horses tend to develop neurological symptoms more than juvenile equines. While vaccination for EHV-1 is widespread, especially for breeding and young horses along with competition horses, the presence of post-vaccinal antibodies against EHV-1 is not indicative of protective immunity. Repeated and regular vaccination, good hygiene and symptomatic treatment of infected horses does reduce the frequency and severity of EHV-1, but does not fully prevent the disease and guarantee that there won't be outbreaks. In this way, EHV-1 vaccination is much like vaccination for COVID-19. Let's talk more about what happened in Valencia in February 2021. How could a virus, that most horses had supposedly been already exposed to many times, cause such a disruption in the European equestrian community? Firstly, as previously mentioned, stress can cause EHV-1 infection to reoccur. Horses from different backgrounds were transported over long distances to Valencia, arriving at an unfamiliar competitive event and stabled together in a large stable tent. If in your childhood any of you have been to a sleepaway camp, you might remember feeling some stress at first too. Many horses were not current on their EHV-1 vaccination or had not been vaccinated, as the infection was not perceived as a threat by riders and owners. Although the closed sides of the stalls did not allow easy nose-to-nose contact, the riders and grooms from different parties often interact with each other, which creates contact among horses too. There was large non-compliance to simple isolation and precaution measures. Owners did not want to move their horses with fever into isolation, mainly due to distrust and feared increased risk of injury. There are many parallels to be drawn here with COVID-19, especially with regards to prevention of future EHV-1 outbreaks. Obligatory vaccination, education of owners, frequent disinfection of public spaces, intake into competition only after temperature checks, and minimization of contact between horses and teams would help the world move towards less and smaller EHV-1 outbreaks. Nowadays, horses after the age of 2 to 4, depending on their breed, facility, and purpose, will no longer live in herds. Rather, they live in boxes with limited social interactions and movement. This has a significant impact on their natural immunity, and mental health, stress. In natural herd conditions, horses will on average travel 30 kilometers a day. This is almost impossible to replicate, when horses are practically boxed all day. Owners argue this is because they don't want horses to injure themselves outside, however, injuries can still happen inside. There are high levels of stress also associated with the amount of transport horses have to do nowadays. As mentioned previously, in herds horses travel about 30 kilometers a day. However, this means on foot and not thousands of kilometers in a truck or an airplane. To arrive to Valencia in 2021, the horses had to travel from England, Belgium, Sweden, Russia, Germany, and the list goes on and on. In 2000 all competitors, horses and riders, had to travel across the world in an airplane to Sydney, which puts a tremendous amount of stress on horses' bodies. Horses' main diet in their normal environment is grass. It is difficult to supply horses with the amount of grass they would normally eat, especially if they are not allowed onto pastures. Instead, horses receive feed. Horses' feed can consist of oats, beans, corn, peas, nuts, seeds, etc. This feed is also compressed and processed in order to have a more concentrated energy source. What shows that there is a mismatch is the amount of colics, a common, yet often deadly disease where the intestines of a horse clog up and a very strenuous operation is required. Colics are more common within boxed horse populations, and horses kept in large pastures. There are also many additives given to sport horses, whose purposes are to build muscle, prevent muscle ache, act as a supplement, vitamins, etc., prevent pain, support joints, help the gastrointestinal tract, calm your horse, and give it an energy boost. These are also often given without any prescription, or even without a given purpose. A supplement cocktail is often given to sport horses. There is also debate within the scientific community whether these supplements even function the way they should. Some supplements do, nonetheless. Yet the question is, do they really benefit your horse? Or would natural conditions do it more good? High numbers of horses allow more transmission. With natural immunity in herds there is less of a problem as it would with horses who have lost their immunity due to semi-isolation. At competitions, horses are regrouped into large temporary barns, like tents, which can contain several dozens to hundreds of horses. Additionally, horses traveling from all over the world with a lot of stress improve this chance. Groups in herds normally do not reach over 100. Most herds are usually made up of several separate, small, bands. Size may range from 2 to 25 individuals, mostly mares and their offspring, with no more than 1 to 5 stallions. To sum it up, there is a significant mismatch between horses in their natural conditions and how they are being kept today. Perhaps if the conditions, especially sport, horses are currently kept would mimic their natural ones more, situations such as an EHV-1 outbreak would be less frequent, or much less likely to reoccur.